Hello, hi, welcome to my first real video. Not I am making this video because I have noticed that there's a little gap in the scrap mechanic creative community that involves piston engines run by timers, not sensor based, which require timing wheels. So, over the past little while, the little while being a couple of weeks, I have spent my time just making a few designs of timer-based piston engines with the changing the amount of pistons and also changing the design of the piston. So, what I would like to do first is show off the basic concept of the design. So, what I'll actually do is I'll start off with this 3-piston design, since I believe that it's one of the easiest to understand. So the whole setup down here is actually incredibly similar to setting up a sensor design. So if I just quickly spawn in I don't have any 3-piston sensors. Okay, I'll spawn this in. So a sensor, one singular piston requires a singular sensor. And also, this is one of the smallest designs you can make. Instead of connecting this piston up here to a T-section, I actually connect it to this bar. So when I copy it, it's allows me to have less bearings, and also this top bar to be more solid. See, the piston's only interacting with the single bearing when you copy these over. Let me quickly build a 3-piston. Let me just quickly weld the three of these together so that you can see what I mean. Like so. So this is how a simple 3-piston sensor engine would be constructed. You have the 3 bearings up top, 3 bearings in the middle. This allows the pistons to angle themselves depending on whatever the piston engine is set at, and you have your 2 bearings down the bottom here to offset each piston, and then the ends obviously can be attached to your wheels. So this design, whilst being quite useful, quite compact, wait, no. So the sensor design is pretty useful. It's nice and easy to build. It doesn't require any complex connections or anything. All it needs is just a proper setup. So it definitely has that going for it. I'm not saying I'm going to call them my designs because I haven't seen any others. I'm not saying my designs are particularly are better, or in like how easy it is to build them or anything. The only thing I really see about my designs is it's easier to optimize them, and it's also easier. They're way more reliable. There's absolutely no chance of them running in reverse, since you're timing the pistons from left to right, and since all the pistons are angled one after the other, it's like a screw. It's like you can't turn. A screw doesn't go in when you turn it backwards; it comes out, and that's what the timers sort of force the piston engines to do. So this is just a 3-piston design. So just so you can sort of see. I mean, I'm sure everyone who watches this video knows exactly what I'm talking about. Wow. Like anyone's going to watch this. I think I'll probably have 6 views within 2 years. Right. So this engine here is set up almost exactly the same, except instead of sensors, it's just curved pipe pieces. That's about it. Now, the real different part comes in where I have a little timer clock connected to 3 timers, which are all at 2 tick speed. This is because of a funny little thing with the Scrap Mechanic game engine, where extending a piston 2 blocks is slightly shorter, or almost exactly the same time, takes exactly the same time as 2 ticks, 0.5 milliseconds, which is pretty dang interesting. So then this timer here loops and runs also at 2 ticks per loop. So yes, the controller settings are exactly the same, except an interesting thing with a timer-based engine is you don't actually need a separate piston. I've just deleted it. You don't actually need a separate piston to push in or activate the engine with a timing bar. You can just reverse the engine by reversing the bearings, basically the opposite to what they currently were. So it's subtracted the distance that they set out originally, plus again that distance. So that's why for a 3-piston engine where it's 120, because it needs to add up the angles of the 3 pistons against each other, need to add up to 360. You then just subtract 240. And I can do that from activating a button, and then that allows me to reverse the engine. So what we'll quickly do is I'll take this one. Actually, before we quickly do that, let's quickly do something else. This engine and this engine, this is actually my original design. This is a 3-piston design. This I find is actually the fastest, the easiest to build. This is the most resource. This is the lightest amount of resources it requires. Actually, we're going to do a little optimization just to show you some on the fly. So this timer here, I realize I don't actually need. Since what I needed to do was I needed to offset this piston half a turn, or quarter of a turn, sorry, from this piston. So I put that timer in, but I find that that's at 3, and I just need to set that to 5, and then hook that into there. That should work. We'll see whether it works or not in a bit. So I'll take this vehicle out for a spin just to show you. So we'll hop in the seat. I'll press. I'm going to press 1 now, and that should activate the piston. So you can see the timer as activated, and then that's driving the other timers, which are then connected to the pistons. And you can the logic blocks are just so that I could mess around pretty much with whatever inputs I wanted to do. So we'll quickly drive back. So what's happening here is since the timers are extending the pistons extending and retracting the pistons at basically almost the exact time. This is almost the fastest. I'd say maybe you could shave off a few. You can make it slightly, like maybe a few dozen milliseconds faster. This is almost the fastest piston engine you can make, and in this case, it is also one of the most reliable engines you can make. So I can mash the on-off button. You can see it's always going to rotate in the one direction. I'm just setting to reverse so you don't go in the water. I can mash it again. You can see it's always going to run in the same direction because the pistons are always going to fire in the same way. So we'll go take this back and put it down. So with I'll show you, I'll go to the original design first. So this is the original one, a 4-piston engine. This is actually easier to make since all the bearings, I can just set that bearing. These 2 bearings can actually be condensed into one, and this rod can be directly connected to this wheel. But I wasn't thinking about that. I was just thinking about how the heck do I make this? The timings for these 2 pistons have to cross over. The timings for these 2 pistons have to cross over, and the timings for these 2 pistons have to cross over, but also this one has to be delayed a quarter of a turn from the first one, 3 has to be delayed a quarter of a turn from 2, and 4 has to be delayed a quarter of a turn from 3. So how you do that is you have your timing, however long it's going to take to fire the piston, since scrap mechanic is wonderfully consistent. Since all I have to do is set up these timers to go at 2 ticks and this timer to run at 4. This fires basically both of these at the same time, but this one stops this one stops 2 ticks before this one stops. And then the sequence just runs on since all the timers are connected. I didn't explain that very well in any case. We'll start the engine. So a 4-piston engine has actually a much more rhythmic feel to it than the 3-piston one, since you actually have 2 halves of it sort of working somewhat separately. It's like a 2-piston engine where one side is set a quarter of a rotation from the other one, but each side also has a quarter of a rotation from themselves. So this one also, I haven't actually set up a reverse in this one since it was the first one I made. But all you would have to do is just to reverse every single bearing. I can quickly show. We're just going to reverse every bearing like this. And you can see now it runs in reverse just as reliably. So I don't know exactly how to prove how reliable it is. I'll just have to maybe maybe just build one. Oh, I'll show you when I have a massive load on it. I don't have any comparisons, but I mean, take my word, don't take my word. So quickly drive this back. Okay. I'll just put this down. Right. Then for the last of my initial designs, I have this 2-piston engine. So this one I wanted to make, of course I wanted to make a 2-piston engine because then I have something that's very resource light, uses much fewer bearings than the 3 or 4-piston one, and a lot fewer timers. So this is then going to lead into that creation over there, that one there. And a cool perk with the timer engine is this one system, this one looped system, you can actually hook up to every single wheel if you have an engine for every single wheel, and each wheel will run from it. You don't need a sensor for every piston. You don't need an extra piston to push in a timing wheel or anything, or you don't need like tons of logic and logic gates with a switch so that you don't know the pistons fire. You don't need any of that. All you need is this one singular these 3 timer blocks, the controller, and the 2 logic blocks, and you can power technically an infinite amount of pistons on a singular creation, or actually however many Scrap Mechanic will let you have, or for its physics engine. So we'll hop in, and I'll press 1, and you can see this also has the very rhythmic firing, but that's because of the quarter turn offset. Pressing 2 just reverses the bearing in the middle, and you can see, I mean, it's supposed to go in reverse, it's supposed to go forwards, and it works incredibly reliably. It is raining outside, so we're just going to park this back. It's nothing special. It's just something I haven't seen, and I thought I should just cover the topic. Here we have a cool little car I built that's actually powered through a gearing system. Please don't shame my gearings. I've done tons of testing, and the T-piece is the best. Trust me. The plus sign. You have the least amount of resistance. If you want to test it yourself, just set up something like this. Power this one with like a gas engine or something, and just put tons of weight on the end, and then delete the gas engine, and you'll see that this keeps on spinning freely for much longer than any other design. The hooks in, hooks out, or any combination. Yeah, I've done so much testing, and T-piece for the win. Plus sign. So this is the same this is the same piston engine that you can see in the 3-piston design, except I've rotated it upright for similarity to a car, and I've made a little body, and I've made it nice and open, so it's like a weird hot rod, old-timey style looking space thing that none of those words fit together. And we just press 1, we activate it, and we start driving. So yeah, piston engines, I'd say they have a lot of torque. I'd say they actually have more torque than electric engines. It's just the trade-off, whereas an electric engine has less torque but higher speed. So a piston engine to an electric engine is like an electric engine to a gas engine, if that makes any sense. You have more torque but lower speed. When you compare a piston engine to an electric engine, that's the same thing. So here we have the same engine and actually the same body, except I've cut it in the middle and I've added a clutch. This is the only update to this design. I added a clutch for a little bit of realism, basically. So we can start the engine and we go boom, 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 and then we activate the clutch and it just jams in there, and then all of a sudden we have a nice little driving car. And yes, if the clutch isn't engaged, you'll see it still rolls. So we can activate the piston. We can actually press 3 to put it in reverse. That's just rotating it with the controllers. We can activate the clutch, deactivate the clutch, reverse the engine, activate the clutch again. This is needlessly complicated to do this one simple process, but I think it just adds like this nice little bit of realism. And it's a cool looking car with the gears at the back. So we'll just go back. It's quite fast as well, these piston engines. Since they're going at that particular speed, they're basically just as fast or faster than sensor engines. They're going to be more reliably faster. This right here that I'm about to show you is actually just, I set it up to have 10 pistons, 9 timing, I don't know what to call them, timing bearings or something. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pistons. My bad, not 10. So, yes, it was just, I just wanted to see how large I could make it easily. And since it's, I don't know, it's an incredibly simple kind of design. The only issue that started coming up for me is the timings become incredibly complex. And I also didn't quite figure out, I probably could condense this down to 3 timers, honestly, or 6 timers. There's no need to have this many. I delete this row and hook these up to these back 3 again. Since that's how the 3 piston engine works, to make it reliable, to make it reliable, you actually have the first and last piston. The last piston fires just after the first again, and this actually allows the slightest bit of overlap between those pistons, so that starts becoming incredibly reliable. So that's what these timer designs. That's what this does. That's why I believe I can cut these 3 off and just hook these 3 up to those. I won't do that now. So yes, I'll just quickly show that this one does work. With the timer piston design, I can technically expand this to 360 pistons, or 359, or however many, or 360 pistons, because all I would then need to do is just to offset each one by 1 singular degree. And since controllers can't offset continuous values, it's all discrete, like whole numbers. They're all whole numbers, so I can't actually you can't technically do more than 360 on a singular bar. But the problem with doing 360 on a singular bar, as you can already see it in this one, is it bows up in the middle. Why are you moving? Oh, okay, it's just settling. It bows up in the middle. See, it's even doing it now properly for me. So you can see this issue happens. I will show you, even though this is a timer piston showcase, I will show you a large sensor piston design that I made, completely impractical for any singular scenario. Oh, I haven't actually showed the reversing. So if you watch from the top and the side, so this is just me turning reversing those bearings that are rotating the pistons, or their angles. There you go. So you can see there's a lot of torque in it. There's an incredibly large amount of torque in this design. So you can actually, this is quite easy to see. You can see the top row of timers and the bottom row of timers are actually running at the same amount of time. They're actually running at the exact same time. So in actual fact, I don't need this bottom row. I can just hook the top row in to these 3, and that's the same with the 3 piston design. I will have to do some testing, maybe show them off in a later vid. All right, that covers it with all of my messing around and testing. Next, what I wanted to do was to make the biggest boy. This is what I would conceivably build in a survival world, to sort of drive around, haul a lot of weight. I mean, with having 4 double piston engines, you have so much torque. And since each wheel's spinning, you have no worry about, say, the front wheels or the back wheels not having any friction. So you have such an incredible amount of torque. I have no doubts in my mind I could have a whole entire moving base. Actually, quickly before I do that, I'd like to show off a little funky thing that kind of, I don't know. I'm part of the, I guess it's called like Piston Engine Master Race or something, or the PE Master Race. Not physical education. Here we go. So I'm going to quickly put down a level 1 engine, both types, a level 1 controller and a level 1 piston. We're going to put the piston on a little bit of a platform because that's the main focus of this video, I guess. And you know what? Let's paint it as well. Let's paint it. There's no gold. There's brown. Let's paint it red because red is cool. So we'll put down the electric and gas engine. So the electric engine, to upgrade from 0 to max, where it'll be able to drive, say, I guess the electric engine will be able to drive an entire crafting base, mobile crafting base quite easily. But you'll be guzzling batteries like there's no tomorrow. To power this to max, I believe it requires 28 component kits. 4, 10, 18, 28. Yes, 28 component kits, and the gas engine is the same. So both of these require 28 component kits to level them to max so that the electric engine has similar torque to a piston engine, but now you have, obviously, fuel consumption. So next we have the controller, the humble controller. The humble controller engine with its thousands of bearings. Well, actually not thousands of bearings. It's a similar amount to the piston engine, actually. But having them all in one straight line does make it a little bit weaker. And if you've ever made a controller engine of any decent speed, you know that you have to put so many supports down that it's kind of useless. Use pistons anyway as supports. So the controller, I'd say as soon as you reach around here, you have the ability to make a decently fast car. But ideally, you'd want the maximum amount of piston, the maximum amount of bearings. That's 5 bearings for each back wheel, and that's probably the fastest speed you're going to get. So if we upgrade it, it requires 2, 3, 5, 10. I wasn't counting. 20. So that requires 20 component kits to upgrade to max. Now, I'll have to do some further testing, which I might do in another video if I have the time, motivation, or literally anything really. Or I want to procrastinate. There we go. That's why I'd make another video. Procrastinate from doing uni. Okay, so I believe the controller engine using one singular controller would run at around the same speed as my double piston engine here. So one singular piston actually requires only 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. No, what was that? I can't count anymore. 2, 4, 6, 8. 8. It requires 8 component kits to upgrade to max. That's 16 for a double piston engine, and at that point you have the same speed as a max controller. With an incredible amount of torque. Obviously, the speed is nowhere near an electric or gas engine, but I mean, you're not using any fuel. Piston engine master race. So, what I'm going to show off here is this build. So, the one thing that this build has is I have each engine just hooked up to this one timer. This is still the unoptimized timer from over there that we fixed. So, I've got each engine hooked into it. I don't need any more sensors for each one. You know, if you had a sensor engine for each wheel, you would require its own sensors, its own timing stick, like against the wheel, well, not against the wheel, but coming down so that you can activate the sensors or something. And each one would require an individual one because they will all come out of sync. Whereas the timer design allows all the engines to eventually run perfectly at the same time. This here is just a simple AD converter, so I can control it with my keyboard from the seat. And what I also have from the AD converter, I have controllers, which I've also hooked into a switch, which just allow me to reverse the left and right side independently, and also both sides at the same time. So I can go. So now I can go forwards, backwards, left, and right. And it is tank drive, so I guess that's a plus. It does mean it's got quite a tight turning radius for being such a large vehicle. We'll press 1 to activate the piston engines. You see they're quite lively. I'm holding D right now. So you can see that the right side of the craft, the controllers have reversed. Actually, I'll turn it off so you can see. So holding D reverses the controllers on the right side, and holding A reverses the controllers on the left side. And it's because of how the timing piston works. It's like changing the thread on a screw from in to out, or however the heck I described that before. And it means that all of a sudden, it will go in the reverse direction. And pressing 2 just reverses all the bearings, so now the creation runs in reverse. So I'll quickly start it forwards. We'll just go drive over this hill. So there is obviously a delay between pressing the button and it turning. You just have to kind of think about where you're going. So we'll drive over. So yes, each wheel has its own double piston engine. This is an incredible amount of torque. I can actually do some quick testing. Let's slap what would be on a base such as this. Let's do this. Let's move this over here onto some flat ground. What would be on your mobile base? You'd obviously have a craft bot. You'd have a few of these, a few of these, a few of these. So you'd have maybe, I'd say 3. I'd say 3 for a decent amount because you want to harvest a few. You'd probably have 2 of these for ease. I'm going to crush my head. and then obviously like a billion chests, because you know you are the what's the word, the farming king. You know what you're doing, and you can build and mine and hop around and scotch and everything, and maybe you'd even have an extra craft bot. You're that cool. You'd have another craft bot because you just want to make sure that you've mined everything. So we hop in the creation, we press 1, and we press right. I've actually overweighted it. Oh no, what have I done? Okay. Let's let's assume you only have one craft bot. Let's assume you only have one craft bot. This is still a lot. I hope it works now. I tested this before. I just had a running glitch right there. That's why I looked like I spazzed out. I tested this before and it did work. Maybe I have too many chests. Okay, I know what's happening. Okay, so the issue with this is now you have to change the timings of the pistons, because they're going to be running a little bit slower due to the... Oh no. Let me just fix this. Hold up. Quickly cut to the fixed engine. Okay. Right. Okay, so I just messed around a little bit and realized that I didn't set it up correctly. So what we're going to have on our crafting vehicle is a craft bot. We're also going to have, if I can just place this down, we're going to have a few refiners, obviously, because, I mean, like, you want to be able to build whatever you want. We're going to have a few of these ones as well. This will allow us to hold our resource, and we also want actually a few chests. So now we can store all of our stuff. So we hop in the seat. What I've done now, compared to the previous design without any weight on it, is all I've done is I've extended the length of these timers so that they activate the pistons for a longer period of time. This means that now you won't be firing the piston before it's actually at the correct point in its cycle. This means that the movement becomes a little more jank, but again, it becomes quite reliable again. And of course, you're going slower. It's the same. It's just the trade-off between piston engine. Like between electric engines and gas engines, and piston engines and electric engines. Yeah. So it still goes forwards. I'll bet much more slowly. You can see they do skip every now and then. And then reversing the bearing should still make us go backwards. There we go. And I think this is a decent, well, for a small scale, build. Obviously, I mean, I could make them 3 pistons each wheel, or I could make quite a large, like say, 5 piston engine at the back and at the front, and have like the whole creation pivot in the middle. It's actually a good idea. I should make one of those soon. But yeah, so we put that down. And this is just the idea used on a large scale. You can just see that I only require the one set of timings for all 4 piston engines. So it's actually quite resource... it's not very resource hungry. You don't need a lot of sensors. Okay, so that does it for the timer section of the video. What I want to do now, though, is actually show off all the cool sensor pistons that I've made. I mean, they're not particularly new, or I don't think... I think one of them isn't. You know what? I think I like them. So I'll show you the first one. The first one is a design that uses two pistons for a sensor engine. This is technically the most resource light you can make it, the least... Well, okay. There's obviously going to be someone who can use less bearings than me, or someone that can use better controls or whatever. But for how I build the engines, this is the most optimized design I can come up with. So I have the arming system, which rotates them into the correct direction. I can obviously set it to automatically do it. Actually, I should probably do that. Okay. The only thing with building a 2-piston design compared for a piston engine with sensors compared to the 2-piston design with timers is that you can't actually reverse this. So its timing method is set in stone. You've got, because of how these are arranged, unless you can manage to move this sensor here over to this side, like 180 degrees, and then you'd be able to change it. But that would require, obviously, more bearings. So I hooked it up to a car. This is just my basic slab car I always make. You'll see later if I ever make a new video, if I care enough. So we'll activate the piston engine, and we'll press 2, and we can see it starts running. So it also ends up having that same pulsing motion as the timer-based engine. I will say the one advantage of piston-based is if you can manage to sort of mitigate how likely it is for the engine to get caught, or not caught, but like stuck in a position, because that is often the downfall for piston engines. If you have quite a large load that you're moving, your entire engine can get stuck in a certain position if you're not covering all your bases, or you're not covering every single angle around a circle, basically. So will I do this right now? I don't know. So say you have a circle that's just as pretty as this one. Just as pretty as this one. Will go down like that. Like that. And realize that we didn't do it right, but I mean it. I'm sure it doesn't matter. And then we make it. So you have a circle just as pretty as this one, and the white is the path of the sensors, is the path that the sensor's going to take, and it's going to trigger in this yellow area, basically. Actually, I'll extend this one wider. So whenever the white crosses the yellow, it's going to trigger, and that's going to trigger it basically for about 1/2 of its rotation. That's going to trigger it for 1/2 of its rotation, and what happens is if you have say a piston that's here, a piston that's here, and a piston that's here, or a sensor that's there. Say this is where the sensors are currently looking, the red. You're going to have all that weight on this one singular piston. It's not going to have enough torque to rotate the entire body of the vehicle or the wheel. So what's going to happen is you're going to end up with these two pistons not being able to help, actually working against this one singular piston, and you're going to get stuck. And this is the common thing that happens with sensor engines. Now, timer engines, what happens is there's no timing belt. Even though they do go in a circle, there's no timing belt. There's no area on this left or the right-hand side where your pistons will be working against each other. It'll all be timed correctly, no matter where they are, that they will fire, basically. And this encourages a very good reliability of the engine. So what I will want to do now is quickly show you. This is my Magnum Opus sensor engine. So obviously the more pistons you use in a sensor engine, the more reliable. So say I actually have 6 pistons, or how many do I have here now? 5. Okay, so say I have 5 or 6. Oh, just imagine, please imagine these are all evenly spaced. At any one point, I'll probably have 3 or 2 or 3 firing at the same time, and this time it'll have 2 or 3 times the amount of power than before to actually turn the whole wheel or turn the engine over. And this is when a sensor engine and timer engines start matching up in performance. But timer engines, I'm kind of figuring this out as I get talk now. Timer engines are much more reliable at smaller pistons, which means you can have much more reliable engines whilst also having a much less lower performance impact. So what I'm about to show you is an engine that has enough pistons for basically every single area, well, in this pixelated diagram I have, to have sensors looking for this timing bar. So at any point, you're going to have an incredibly large amount of pistons trying to turn. So that's what makes this one reliable, but also completely impractical for survival. It is called the Big Boy. This uses 16 pistons, all rotated, and looking for this white bar. So this is really tanking my FPS. So what happens here is that it's mirrored because I built one side and copied it over. It means I can only build an even number. 16 pistons is not the theoretical max. The theoretical max is about 18. It is actually also maybe even 20, but I need supports in the middle. I reckon I could probably put a support in. So the actual theoretical max for the amount of piston engines you could have on a single bar is 20, without having to separate them by a wheel, because that's the max distance of the sensor, and since every piston is 2 blocks before the other one, you can only have 10 pistons that way and 10 pistons that way. So I'd actually say 20 is the theoretical max. So we delete that, and we paste in this thing, which is my another slab car. I just slab extruded out from the piston engine. So we activate it, we timer it, and we press this button, and we can watch it just move. So it all propagate the way the piston engine wave. It all propagates from the center because of the mirroring. But this platform, so this is incredibly strong, since you have 8 pistons almost firing at the same time, compared to any other piston engine, which will have far less. So 8 pistons firing at the same time in one direction, and 8 pistons retracting in another direction would actually... so what it would do to actually give you equivalent power, I'd say, around 12 pistons, which makes it immensely strong. Obviously, advantages and disadvantages of the timing, all the same, because it says sensor engines and are all the same in that way. So you can see this obviously so impractical. I have about a third of the FPS that I started with all of those creations over there. And the amount of component kits you'll require and everything is just absolutely phenomenal. But if you do pull it off, you have a resource-free or a fuel creation that doesn't absorb fuel, can probably push a whole entire base, way more than that one, and also now moves at the same speed as you running. So yeah, I think that's a massive upside. This is definitely an end goal, by the way, or a hyper goal. And yes, I believe that's it for this showcase of all the designs I have. Let me quickly just check to see if I have any more interesting things. I don't think I have any more interesting things. Oh yes, okay. I will show you this. This I have recently uploaded to the workshop. This is a mechanical tank drive. So all it does is it uses the timer piston engine in the middle. So I needed to use a timer piston engine for its size, decreasing lag. I mean, it's not a lot of lag, but I mean, a few bearings here, saving a few bearings here and there is always wanted. So yes, because of its reliability and it always wanting to run in one direction, I can dynamically change the load on the end of the engine, and it'll always try and move in the one direction, although it won't get stuck as easily. And using a smaller piston engine on a design like this obviously saves so much performance, so why the heck not? So this actually works very simply. All it does is it rotates one half of the vehicle by smashing the gears through one another. Plus sign gears for the win. It smashes the gears through one another, and this reverses the wheel direction. So pressing both buttons allows me to go backwards, pressing one allows me to turn, and this is all from the piston engine only ever moving in one direction. I don't have to reverse it at all. So there you go. This is also kind of impractical for survival, but I mean style points, and style points is the only thing that we care about. And last but not least, well, last and somewhat least, is just a weight test. This is 1,450 concrete blocks, basically. hooked up to that beginning 4-piston design, so it's got one too many bearings, but that doesn't matter. And it's also not hooked in as optimized as it can be. In each of the designs, I can actually reduce the amount of timers by 1 by hooking the original timing circuit actually from the first timer back into itself. I'll probably showcase that at some other point if I'm up to it. So you can definitely see the trade-off. So we have the torque, we don't have the speed. So we can move all of this weight, but at a very low speed because of the time these take. So what I can do as to show you off really quickly is we'll first connect it to one side, the electric engine to one side, so you can see how strong it is. Not very strong. So we were actually moving at a slower speed, and this is how you'd normally have it if you had a 4-wheel creation. Connecting it to both sides doubles the amount of batteries that you would use. Don't quote me on that. I'm just assuming that since you're technically, it's just double the connection, so obviously you double the amount of battery consumption. This is a max electric engine running at max power, by the way. So you can see now that we have both sides of the wheel powered, we do get a lot better performance. But with only one side of the wheel powered, which is more realistic, yes, we get slightly worse. This is the max speed. I don't even think it has enough power to go up a hill. I mean, neither does my engine, but I'm not going to say anything about that. So there we go. That is all the designs I have currently. I'm not... in the coming week, there is the slightest possibility that I might release another video. Thank you, friends, family, anonymous people on the internet, for all the support that you might possibly show me and that you haven't shown me yet, because there is no way you could have done it. I say that in the nicest way possible. And yeah, I'm just gonna end it right now. Alt F4.